I agree. Yeah, there's an Article 2
Holy
prerogative
fuck.
to manage immigration and enforce immigration laws. You can fail to enforce to such a degree.
Is this
Question
real?
back there first. Hold on, there's a question back there first.
I have two quick questions. First, President Trump has talked about potentially suspending habeas corpus to take care of the illegal immigration problem. When could we see that happen, do you think?
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article 3 courts, the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases. So Congress actually passed, it's called jurisdiction stripping legislation. It passed a number of laws that say that
Are they saying Immigration Nationality Act is unconstitutional? Really?
Article 3 courts aren't even allowed to be involved in immigration cases. Many of you probably don't know this. I'll give you a good example. Are you familiar with the term temporary protected status, or TPS, right? So by statute, the courts are stripped of jurisdiction from overruling a presidential determination or a secretarial determination on TPS when the Secretary of Homeland Security makes that determination. So when Secretary Noem terminated TPS for the illegals that Biden flew into the country, when courts stepped in, they were violating explicit language that Congress had enacted, saying they have no jurisdiction. So it's not just, the courts aren't just at war with the executive branch, the courts are at war, these radical rogue judges, with the legislative branch as well too. So all of that will inform the choices the president ultimately makes, yes.
Mr. Miller.
I'm speechless. And the top comment, of course, on X, the Russian bot farm. Be honest about it. Illegal immigrants don't have constitutional rights, but the fascist rogue judges say they want to say they do. Trump will go full Lincoln on these shit libs, and it will be beautiful. Yeah, the last time that we suspended habeas, I'm pretty sure was the fucking Civil War. All right. Okay.
That it would be like mandamusable by somebody, but then there's all sorts of like other questions.
I want to cut a deal real quick with Democrats. Yeah. I will advocate for the return of Kilmer or creating CCOT, a territory within. I'm sorry, creating a territory within CCOT.
I'm sorry, guys. I am no longer interested in this debate. I need to. My mind is somewhere else. Trump suspend habeas. The Habeas Corpus Suspension Act, entitled An Act Relating to Habeas Corpus and Regulating Judicial Proceedings in Certain Cases, was an act of Congress that authorized the President of the United States to suspend habeas corpus in response to the American Civil War and provided for the release of political prisoners. It began in the House of Representatives as an indemnity bill. Introduced on December 5th, 1862, releasing the president and his subordinates from any liability for having suspended habeas corpus without congressional approval. Suspended habeas corpus under the authority granted to him 6 months later. The suspension was partially lifted with the issuance of the Proclamation 1848 by Andrew Johnson, and the act became inoperative at the end of the Civil War. Is a legal procedure by which a report can be made to the port alleging unlawful detention and requesting that the court order the citizen's custodian to bring the prisoner to court and determine whether the detention is lawful. This might be the craziest thing. When did this happen? Today? This might be the craziest Trump thing. Holy. All right, we're going to open call. Okay. If you want to come chat, we can. This is fucking nutty. Let's go. The Trump administration is looking into suspending the people's right to challenge their incarceration in court to carry out the president's mass deportation efforts. Described it as a privilege. The writ of habeas corpus is a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution that can only be suspended wherein cases of rebellion and invasion and public safety may require it. Habeas corpus is Latin for that you have the body, allows those in custody to challenge the legality of their detention. It has only been suspended 4 times in U.S. history: Civil War, Reconstruction, 1905 insurrection, and after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Fuck, do I have to read into the other cases where it was suspended?
So none of which that are even close to what we have now.
Not even remotely.
People coming into the country equals invasion. I assume that's what they're going off of. It's like a quote-unquote invasion of the southern border.
Yeah, that's what Miller claimed.
Yeah. Good luck defining what the fucking invasion is based on that.
Look, this changes the whole conversation I had even last night.
What what'd you and Patel talk about last night?
Was that conversation not last? Yeah, that was last night. The due process one. But the reason that it changes that conversation is because he conceded at the outset that they're entitled to notice and to challenge their detention. But if we suspend habeas, then
Are they entitled to notice?
yes, the Supreme Court ruled it. Yes, they need notice that they're able to that they're deportable and the ability to challenge their designation under the Alien Enemies Act.
Damn it.
Oh my god. Like, this is fucking crazy. Do I want to...
Oh yeah, it literally says in time of invasion.
I believe there's other quotes. They've been talking about it for 3 or 4 days. How have I not heard about this? I looked up suspend habeas Trump, and all that's coming up is the Miller quote. Is there something else?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. The White House is actively looking at the quote, and it's on a really shitty website.
Did you watch the video?
Yeah. What has Trump said on Truth Social? I need to make like a Truth Social account.
True.
Tariffs. No inflation. Many trade deals. Tariffs. Okay. Not much, it looks like. This is fucking nutty. Ron, how's it going?
Hey, can you hear me good?
Hear you good?
He didn't say it directly. People were asking about habeas corpus, and he's like, "We're looking at ways around it."
Trump did?
Yeah, Trump said that.
Do you have anything to link?
I'm looking right now.
Okay, because
The problem is, if I Google it, the Stephen Miller one
That's-
dominating Google.
that's my problem. Yep.
Oh, but I could do a filter and do like 2 days ago or something.
Yeah, I don't know how the filters work.
Do either of you play DBD?
No.
Oh, damn it. They're doing a Five Nights at Freddy's collab.
This is like making this feels like this is a heart sinking moment. This is fucking crazy. Did that just come out today? Yeah, like 2 hours ago. Yeah. I mean, well, we're cooked. If that happens, like we are.
Yeah.
Because if he suspends habeas, that's not just for.
Hold on.
If he suspends habeas, that's not just for illegal aliens. I hope everyone knows that.
Yep.
I think I saw it in a Tim Pool video I was watching, where Tim Pool, I remember directly Tim Pool being like, "Oh, he's talking about suspending habeas corpus." The video I watched, I don't know where I watched it. It was probably on somebody's stream, but I can't even remember.
There's a quote. Give me just that. The post-millennial. April 30th. Said this that long ago?
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Macomb, that we're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions, sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Yeah. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver for the American people on that?
There are. Oh my god, did you guys see who was appointed the interim U.S. attorney for D.C.?
No.
A fucking another Fox News host.
Fire. Should have been Janine Powell, or whatever the fuck her name is. Judge Janine. That would have been fire.
No, her name's Janine Perot.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Judge Janine? Really?
I if that's her.
She's fucking. Oh, did that just happen today?
It happened yesterday.
Trump judge.
That's Washington D.C. prosecutor.
Oh my god. This was so she. I know her name very distinctly because this is one of the people that Tucker Carlson was calling fucking insane in the Fox News in the Fox News Dominion case.
Oh.
We'll cover that.
Like, sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration.
I know her distinctly from watching Fox News.
Continue to deliver for the American
Yeah,
people
well,
on that.
there are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been.
Jesus Christ. Charlie Kirk even characterized it as suspending habeas.
Rat.
Trump suspending The suspension clause protects liberty by protecting the privilege of writ of habeas corpus. It provides the federal government may not suspend this privilege except in extraordinary circumstances when a rebellion or invasion occurs and public safety requires it. Appreciating the significance of this restraint first requires understanding the writ of habeas corpus. This writ, which Americans imported into the Constitution from English common law, is a means by which a prisoner can test the legality of her detention. Why did it say her? A person who believes is being imprisoned legally can file a petition asking the judge to issue a writ of habeas corpus. When a prisoner files a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, her custodian must explain why the restraint is lawful. If the explanation does not satisfy the court, it will order the custodian to release her. The writ is thus a crucial means by which a prisoner can obtain freedom. Today, the writ of habeas corpus is primarily used by those serving prison sentences to challenge the legality of the process that resulted in their conviction. Historically, however, the writ was primarily used by those imprisoned without judicial process. Early Americans were keenly aware that monarchs of England had sometimes jailed people indefinitely without charging them or trying them in court. Although the writ of habeas corpus existed, the king often ignored it. To protect against such abuse, Parliament enacted the Habeas Corpus Act of 1679 to ensure that the king released prisoners when the law did not justify confining them. This great writ guaranteed prisoners held on authority of the crown the right to invoke protections of the judicial process. The founding generation valued the Great Writ because they had this history in mind. Yet those who framed and ratified the Constitution also believed that in times of crisis, the executive may need leeway to hold suspects without answering to a court. Parliament had suspended the writ during the 17th and 18th centuries when it concluded that the king needed expanded detention power to contain threats. Similarly, several states had equipped their governments with emergency powers by suspending the writ during the Revolutionary War. Pre-ratification practice thus embraced both the importance of writ and the need for safety value. The suspension clause follows this tradition. It protects the writ by imposing a general bar on its suspension. At the same time, it makes the exception for cases when an invasion or rebellion endangers the public safety. A suspension is temporary, but the power it confers is extraordinary. When suspension is in effect, the president, typically through subordinates, can imprison people indefinitely without any judicial check. The clause does not specify.
What the fuck did I just go back to?
I'm reading about the writ of habeas corpus.
Oh.
The clause does not specify which branch of government has the authority to suspend the privilege of writ, but most agree that only Congress can do it. President Abraham Lincoln provoked controversy by suspending the privilege of his own accord during the Civil War, but Congress largely extinguished challenges to his authority by enacting a statute permitting his suspension. On every other occasion, the executive has proceeded only after first securing congressional authorization, which is probably what the Supreme Court would end up appealing to if this gets challenged. But I mean, how do you challenge the suspension of writ when there's nothing to appeal up to the Supreme Court? The whole point of writ is that the judicial can't check it. The writ of habeas corpus has been suspended 4 times since the Constitution was ratified, though throughout the entire country during the Civil War, in 11 South Carolina counties overrun by the Ku Klux Klan during Reconstruction, and in provinces of the Philippines during the 1905 insurrection, and in Hawaii after the Pearl Harbor bombing. The most hotly debated questions concerning the suspension clause involve its effect in the absence of formal suspension. A threshold question whether the clause simply restrains Congress's ability to suspend whatever habeas jurisdiction is currently on the books, or whether the clause grants an affirmative right to habeas review. On one hand, Congress's general bar on suspension assumes that access to habeas relief will exist when the privileges of writ have not been suspended. On the other hand, Chief Marshal noted in Ex parte Bowman, the clause does not itself expressly guarantee that access. The court seems to have resolved that dispute in Bush, where it held that the clause does not simply restrain Congress's ability to suspend existing habeas statutes, but firmly guarantees prisoners some form in which they can challenge the legality of their detention. The court decided, to much controversy, that habeas jurisdiction extends to the prisoners detained outside of the United States by Guantanamo. Oh, interesting. Okay. Wait, hold on. Okay, walk with me here. Guantanamo Bay, outside of U.S. jurisdiction, or outside of U.S. land, at least, held prisoners, and if it was found that writ of habeas corpus applies to the prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, and then it was found that their detention is unjust, do we have, like, any case of them being brought back? Because then that would, like, directly go against... what did you link?
Trump.
Yeah, we are... The suspending of habeas thing might be my next big...
Holy
talking point.
shit!
That is
Hold
the
on.
craziest fucking thing in the world.
Wait, is Trump taking like serious steps to like doing that, or?
He said that if the judges keep stepping in, then he might have to do what only three other presidents have done in American history. And then Stephen Miller said they're what was it? They are actively looking at it as an option.
Isn't the clause in the Constitution specifically like in case of like insurrection or
and invasion? But they're going to use the same invasion definition that they use for the Alien Enemies Act.
Oh my god, this is yeah.
Which is horseshit, by the way. That's the National Intelligence Council. This is a direct quote. While Venezuela's permissive environment enables TDA to operate, the Maduro regime probably does not have a policy of coordinating with TDA. It is not directing TDA movement and operations in the United States. The IC bases this judgment on Venezuelan law enforcement actions demonstrating the regime treats TDA as a threat, and on easy mix of cooperation and confrontation rather than top-down directives characterizing the regime's ties to other armed groups, and decentralized makeup of TDA that would make this relationship logistically challenging. So literally the National Intelligence Council, which I think is the FBI, the FBI, the CIA, those motherfuckers, literally saying that there isn't coordination between Maduro and TDA.
It's just dumb. Yeah, I don't. There's also, I mean, I think I've heard a bit of stuff with Bukele and those relations to like MS-13 and his coordination with like trying to get people as like part of his army or something. But I don't know. The invasion thing was always like super weak, like reasoning. Yeah. I mean, Lincoln doing it during like, I've heard like some conservatives speak like horribly about Lincoln. They're like, because of his suspending of habeas, which I thought was probably like a really tactical use, good usage of executive power.
The only problem I could ever have with Lincoln doing it is that he didn't go through Congress first. But I mean, it's it's a civil war, so it's like, well, what are you gonna do? To act like this is comparable to the fucking Civil War or the 1905 insurrection, or Pearl Harbor is fucking ridiculous, though.
Yeah. Also, it's iffy as if like the president himself, like Lincoln's usage was questionable, but it is listed in Article 1, so it's like probably, I think that's what Justice Taney found. It's probably a congressional power, but like it's Trump using it unilaterally would be unhinged, and I don't think Congress would ever rectify that or ratify.
I just read that I read an article about it. This is why it's so basically it's not like expressly in the Constitution guaranteed, like that the suspension clause isn't guaranteed to one branch, But like
Uh-huh.
historical uses rely on congressional approval because of, you know,
Yeah, because it's been
Lin-
Article 1.
because
yeah.
of Lincoln
Eleven.
appealing to Congress later to, you know, basically ratify it. So that kind of set precedent. And the idea that, yeah, it is in Article 1, so you would assume that it's a legislative power.
Yeah. Nope. 100 days of hell. Jeez.
I guess I need
It's not
to-
even been a few months.
I guess I
Sad.
need to read into the 1905 fucking revolution.
Who were the other
insurrection.
two presidents? Trump said 3. There was Lincoln, and then who were the other 2 that suspended habeas?
Give me 1 second. It was Lincoln. It was... Who was president during Reconstruction?
Grant, Johnson a bit, and I think Hayes was the end of it.
I'd have
But,
to. Let's see.
I think it was mostly Grant, because Johnson just got cut out like the whole time by this Republican Congress. So I think it was mostly Grant during Reconstruction.
Let's see. Well, whoever was president, 1905.
Shit. Was it? There's no way it was was that either like Taft or Roosevelt era?
It was
I feel
Roosevelt.
like. Yeah.
So Roosevelt did it, but I mean with congressional approval. Yeah, the only one that didn't get direct congressional approval was Lincoln, according to this article. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's true. Roosevelt was one during Pearl Harbor. Or, well, Franklin Roosevelt. And then...
Did Bush do it during 9/11? Not sure,
No.
or like sometime around.
No, he did not. Grant was the one who did it for the Reconstruction, because the Ku Klux Klan had overrun 9 counties in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you could cite to justify this being like an insurrection or an invasion, other than like didn't they like take over an apartment building?
Yeah, it's unhinged.
Like, there's probably more justification to suspend habeas because of like fucking Chaz than there is this. At least they were actually trying to secede. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a coincidence that it comes from like Stephen Miller, who's like probably the most unhinged member in Trump's cabinet.
Yeah, I heard a story about Stephen Miller. I don't know if it's true, but how like there was a women's track and field event going on while he was in high school, and then he like joined the race to prove that men are superior.
Oh, what? What? That's
crazy.
insane.
I read that on Reddit, so maybe that's not true, but
It's honestly, I wouldn't put it past. I will probably that's probably the sole reason Trump like picked him for his cabinet.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, I guess I'm gonna do a bunch of reading on habeas, and maybe that's gonna be what I don't know, dude. I'm looking to write a Substack thing on the robbing of due process. But
I'm gonna write one on the 14th Amendment, but I haven't had time to.
the problem is that it keeps getting fucking crazier, because it walked off from like, okay, well, these people have no due process rights. And it's like, okay, well, now maybe they have like the ability to challenge through habeas. And now it's back to, okay, they're not going to have any rights. It's like, well, what am I even defending here?
Yeah.
You walked back and then walked forward again?
Pretty insane.
I might have to have a follow-up convo with Pentuple about this, maybe. Because
Isn't he a lawyer?
yeah, and we had a conversation
Yes.
yesterday about how like, yeah, these people should have due process rights through habeas, and
How did that go?
it was more or less respectful because he just didn't know a lot about the case, so he just kind of was taking the information in. But now this changes my outlook on it completely, because now if the Trump administration is literally thinking about suspending habeas because of this, because of like TROs, then like that completely undermines every position that Pentuple had, because we had that argument on the basis of habeas being a legitimate route.
I mean, yeah, it's like the thing is with Trump is that like there's always going to be like, I think the best example of this was like Vance had a interview around the time of like Trump's inauguration. He was like, well, obviously we're not going to like pardon the like violent offenders on January 6th. Like,
Yep.
obviously that's not going to happen. And then obviously he pardoned them,
then I did it,
and
yep.
literally just don't hear anything. Like it's hard to argue, or at least for like Trump supporters, there's always like going to be like an endless like goalpost shift or something where it's like, oh well, he shouldn't do that, but if he does it, it's fine, and then it's just bad.
Yeah, this is making me wanna go on TikTok. I wanna yell.